Now, when we think about Moreno, what comes to your mind as a person when you think about him, when you remember him? What's the first scene that comes to your mind?
Warm, outgoing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And then, of course, all his ideas, his cosmic ideas.
Normally, did you speak in German or it was in English? How was it?
In English, but when I was discussing with him my translation, I would read it to him, then we spoke German.
Mm-hmm.
And often, I like poetry very much. And I think his early poetry, that is a revelation on Moreno. And it was published in 1923, I guess. What was it, 20? The words of the father in German, Das Testamentest.
Mm-hmm.
And he, off and on, he liked to read the poems in German to me. And that was what I treasure very much.
Actually, it looks like you were there.
Yes.
When he died. How was it?
Yeah. Well,
what happened there? Because you were in Switzerland, right?
In Germany on Lake Constance.
Uh-huh.
But I had studied in Switzerland and worked for 5 years in the clinic Bellman of Dr. Winswanger, who was a friend of Freud. Freud had sent the patients to that clinic. And, what were you asking me
about the time you've been there when he was about to die?
How to die? Well, it was very strange or typical. I had some surgery before. Surgery did not reach me. I got home. And before I had that surgery, which was very sudden event, I had the plan and also preparations to start an institute in my house at Hübelingen on Lake Constance.
Mm-hmm.
And in 1954, Moreno and Sir and Regina, the daughter, they were on a trip in Austria and Germany. And when they came to the famous Lindau Psychotherapy Week, which is also on Lake Constance, Moreno said he wants to visit my home. And we went there. And Moreno was looking out of the window on the lake. I stood next to him, silent for quite a while. And then Moreno said, it looks like the Hudson in here. Perhaps you start an institute here. That's what he said in 1954. And I said, never in my life would I do so. And in 1974, when he was passing away, I opened the institute there. But you were asking me how I saw him passing away. And then finally Circa reached me, and she told me in what shape he was. And I told her that I had a sudden surgery, and she said, well, we are not expecting you to come, but you must know. But the next day I traveled to New York and to Moreno. And there he was lying. He did not eat anything. And on the phone, I asked Circa, couldn't you give him any soup or vitamin drinks or something like that? She said he does not take anything. So I thought, what am I going to bring? And I found the poetry book and read his own poetry book, the German one that didn't last so much, and took it along. I thought perhaps one doesn't find his own one in the hustle and bustle of the whole time there. And I was first assigned to the hospital where other students and friends and colleagues were staying. And it was just shortly before the ASGPP meeting in New York. But then, because Moreno did not accept any medical doctor to see him there, Circa said, well, she had to open the ASGPP meeting when he could not go there, because since 1942, it was always him who opened it. So she said, if you move again to the house, she feels safe. And I was there then. But still up in the hospital, as we said, the housekeeper calls. Could I not get down earlier or immediately? The doctor wants to get out of bed. And I said, yes, I'll come. And he had a rail, and he had his leg over the rail, and he said, I must go to the lecture room. So first I said, well, I'm still here, and some others in the hospital, we can't leave now or anything like that. I went up again to get my stuff. The housekeeper called again. She cannot keep him in bed. And he could not stand on his legs, you know.
He could not.
No, I'm telling you. So I came down, and when I saw he was so determined, I have to go to the lecture room, he always said. Then I said, yes, please. I asked the housekeeper, let's help the doctor to go there. He brought his house coat, we put it on him, we lifted him, and I never forget that moment. I think it was the heaviest of all his life, because on the one hand, I must go to the lecture room as Moreno, straightforward as he was, and on the other hand, the legs did not carry him anymore. So we put him back into bed. He closed his eyes, heavy breathing, didn't say anything. And then I got the book with his German poetry. And I began to read his own poems. One, and then I waited. And after a while, Moreno opened their eyes. Noch ein Gedicht, please another poem. So we kept on. I read at least 5, 6, and then he had fallen asleep. But so I stayed in the house, stayed in the same room as in 1951, 52. And in the evening, on Schützenberg, Ansel Schützenberg, the professor from Paris, who had organized the first psychodrama Congress in Paris,
In 64.
came back from New York, from the ASGPP meeting in 1974, and she said, "Is he still alive?" I said, "Yes, nothing has changed." And then in the evening we sat upstairs just chatting and talking. And Moreno had a colored student to watch him over in the night. So it was about midnight. That man came up and said, "I cannot understand the doctor anymore. He speaks a different language." And I'm talking to him what it was. He calls obviously a name, and but he does not speak English anymore. So I went down. There was the dim light by his bedside, Moreno, eyes closed. And then when he saw me, he said, "Noch ein Gedicht. Please, still another poem." And I kept reading. And believe it or not, until the moment he died, he could not speak English anymore. Circa had to speak German to him. It was as if the language had been wiped out, and even Queenie, the nurse in the hospital, Moreno's hospital, who had worked with him for a quarter of a century or so, she spoke English. He understood, obviously, because she came down every morning to fix them for the day. But he could not speak English. Isn't that strange? And Circa was so happy that she could speak German to him.
Mm-hmm.
Because she is from the Netherlands, you know.